The year was 3050. For 3,000 long years, Earth had been abandoned, left to decay in silence. The once thriving planet, full of life, had become a shadow of its former self. Now it lay in ruins, forgotten by the stars. Humanity had left, not out of choice, but because they had been forced to. The Great War had torn their world apart, leaving nothing but ash and memories. The invaders, the alien species that had crushed humanity, had made sure of that. They destroyed every city, every colony. Earth, the cradle of humankind, was lost. Yet, there was still a strange hope that lingered among the scattered remnants of humanity. They had been exiled to distant planets, their species scattered across the galaxy, always watching from afar, waiting for a chance to return. But the galaxy had forgotten Earth. The invaders believed they had one. They believed that humanity was gone forever. And then something changed in the heart of the galaxy. A small group of exiled humans received a mysterious signal. At first, they thought it was a glitch, a mistake. But the signal was too strong to ignore. It wasn't a call for help. It was a call to action. Earth, after 3,000 years of silence, was calling out once again. The signal was faint, but unmistakable. It was a message from the planet's surface, an echo from the past. We're coming home. The message was clear, but it made no sense. How could this be? Humanity had no fleet, no power. Earth had been left in the hands of the invaders for millennia. The message had to be a trap. But the exiled humans, long lost to the stars, couldn't ignore the call. For 3,000 years, they had dreamed of returning. And now, it seemed, they had no choice. The signal reached far across the galaxy, catching the attention of those who had been waiting. A fleet of ancient ships, abandoned and forgotten, was slowly waking up. They had been dormant for centuries, hidden in deep space, waiting for this moment. The humans who had once piloted them were long gone, but the ships were still intact. They were old, but they were not weak. On the edge of a distant system, far from the familiar stars, the humans began their journey. They gathered in secret, readying the fleet that would take them back to Earth. The decision was made. It wasn't just about vengeance. It was about survival. Humanity had been pushed to the edge of extinction, but they would not be forgotten. Earth was theirs, and they would take it back, no matter the cost. As the fleet prepared to leave the distant planet, there was one question on everyone's mind. Who would they find when they arrived? The invaders who had once ruled Earth had likely spread across the galaxy by now, their empire built on the ashes of humankind. What had happened to the planet in all these years? What had happened to the Earth they once called home? The journey to Earth would take months, but for the humans aboard the fleet, it felt like an eternity. There was a strange, uneasy excitement in the air. They were going home, but what would they find when they got there? Would the planet be as they remembered it? Or would they be stepping into a world so changed that it no longer resembled the Earth of their ancestors? For 3,000 years, humanity had been forced to live in the shadows. Now, they were returning to the light. But the darkness that had taken hold of Earth was not something they could easily escape. The invaders had left their mark, not just on the planet, but on the very soul of humankind. This was not just a mission of war. It was a mission of redemption. And as the fleet sailed through the stars, leaving their hidden home behind, the question remained, what had Earth become in their absence? The people of humanity could only hope that the planet they once knew was still there waiting for them to reclaim it. But deep in the heart of Earth, something stirred. The invaders, who had long since taken control, were not ignorant to the coming storm. They had watched the humans from afar, knowing that one day the last remnants of their race would return. They had been preparing for this moment. They were ready, and they would not let Earth go without a fight. As the humans' ships moved closer to Earth's orbit, the first signs of life appeared on the planet. The invaders had been waiting for this moment, just as the humans had. And so, the battle for Earth began, not with a roar, but with the quiet anticipation of two forces about to collide. The story of humanity's return was about to unfold, but no one, not the humans or their invaders, could have known what would happen when the first ships touched down on Earth's forgotten soil, as the human fleet approached Earth. The vast expanse of space seemed to grow smaller, yet the weight of the journey hung heavily in the air. The vast ships, though ancient, gleamed with a strange and eerie light. These were not the ships of the present-day humans, but relics of a time long past, carrying the scars of wars fought in the shadows of forgotten stars. These ships were survivors, just like the humans aboard them. The fleet had traveled in near silence for months, a constant hum in the background as they neared their destination. The crew, a mixture of soldiers, engineers, and survivors, felt both anticipation and fear. Some had never even seen Earth. They had only heard stories passed down through generations. For them, Earth was a mythic place, spoken of only in hushed voices, and now they were headed straight into the heart of the myth. But Earth was no longer the vibrant, thriving world it had once been. Time had done its work on the planet's surface. Through their windowed views of the distant Earth, the crew saw a dying world. Massive, lifeless deserts stretched across the surface. The oceans that once teemed with life were now dark and murky. The forests, which had once been full of life, were now barren wastelands. The cities that humanity had once built were crumbling, ruins barely recognizable against the backdrop of a new, alien sky. Something was wrong. Earth was still alive, but it was no longer the Earth they had remembered. The humans aboard the fleet, though determined, couldn't shake the creeping feeling that something was waiting for them, and they were right to be uneasy. Earth had been conquered, but the invaders had not simply left after their victory. They had claimed the planet and made it their own, transforming it into something unrecognizable. The invaders were far from the mindless conquerors they had once been thought to be. For the past 3,000 years, they had rebuilt Earth into their stronghold, adapting to the world that humanity had once called home. In the absence of humanity, they had developed their own culture, their own way of life, and most importantly, their own weapons. They had made Earth their own, changing it into a place where humanity had no place to return. But the invaders' rule was not unchallenged. Beneath the surface, hidden in the depths of Earth's forgotten cities, remnants of an ancient human resistance still lived. These humans had never truly accepted the loss of their world. For 3,000 years, they had worked in secret, slowly gathering what little they had left: ancient technology, weapons, and knowledge passed down through generations. They had been waiting, preparing for this moment. The return of humanity wasn't just a hope. It was their last chance for redemption. The invaders, as powerful as they were, never expected humanity to return. They believed their rule was absolute, but deep in their hearts, they knew that Earth had been built on the backs of human ingenuity. No matter how much they changed it, the planet still held the echoes of humanity's greatness. And now, as the first ships of the human fleet entered Earth's orbit, Those echoes began to stir once again. The invaders' first reaction was disbelief. How could humanity still have the strength to fight after all these years? They had expected the humans to be weak, broken by their exile in the far corners of the galaxy. But the humans had grown stronger. Their technology was old, but it was potent, and their desire to reclaim their home was a force that could not be ignored. As the human ships descended through Earth's atmosphere, a wave of panic surged through the invaders' ranks. They had long been preparing for the return of humanity, but nothing could have prepared them for the power that humanity was bringing back. The sky above Earth began to light up as the humans' weapons powered up, preparing for the first strikes. The invaders began to mobilize, their massive fleets of warships rising to meet the threat. But as the two sides prepared for war, something strange happened. The human ships, powerful as they were, seemed to be fading into the atmosphere. Their sensors showed no signs of damage, but the invaders began to notice something unsettling where the human ships had been. There was now only silence. The humans had launched a different kind of attack. They had activated a powerful signal that resonated across the planet, activating the ancient defense systems buried deep within Earth. These defenses, left behind by humanity long before their fall, had been dormant for centuries. But now they were awake, and they were ready to fight. Earth, once thought lost, had a defense mechanism of its own, a final layer of protection designed to keep invaders from ever fully claiming the planet. The invaders had only thought they were in control. They never knew what was hidden beneath the surface. The human fleet didn't need to outgun the invaders. They needed to awaken the ancient power that had been left behind. And in that moment, Earth's hidden forces surged to life, revealing a power beyond anything the invaders could have imagined. The first shots were fired, but they didn't come from the humans. The planet itself had joined the fight. The battle for Earth had begun, not just between the humans and the invaders, but between the world itself and those who had dared to claim it as their own. The invaders were not just fighting humanity, they were fighting the very land they had conquered, and that, they soon realized, was a fight they might not win. Asterisk, the air above Earth crackled with the tension of impending war. The invaders' ships swarmed through the atmosphere, their sleek forms casting shadows over the ruined cities below. But the humans, prepared for this moment for centuries, did not flinch. Their ships, although older and smaller, had one advantage. They knew the land they were fighting for. It was their birthright. As the first salvo of weapons shot from both sides, the sky turned into a chaotic battlefield. The humans' ancient ships unleashed their powerful energy weapons, long forgotten by the invaders, but devastating in their execution. These weren't just weapons of war. They were weapons of survival, designed to withstand the most brutal of fights. Every blast that hit the invaders' ships was a reminder of humanity's resilience, a force that couldn't be erased by time or defeat. Down below, the survivors in Earth's cities watched with a mixture of awe and disbelief. For generations, they had been forced to hide, believing their world had been lost forever. Now, they saw the blue sky filled with ships bearing the symbol of humanity's return. The cities, some of them barely standing, became rallying points for those who had long awaited this day. They were ready to rise. But the invaders, though caught off guard, were not easily defeated. Their ships adapted quickly, shifting to counter humanity's unexpected strike. They had been preparing for a long time, refining their technology to ensure that they could suppress any attempt by humans to reclaim the planet. The first wave of the invader fleet retaliated with heavy firepower, turning the sky into a fiery storm. Yet, the humans fought with a different kind of determination. They had seen Earth crumble. They had witnessed the pain of their species being scattered across the stars, and they had not come back simply for vengeance. They had come back for something more, something that would tip the scales in their favor. It wasn't just their weapons that made them strong. It was their unwavering resolve, their unyielding connection to the earth beneath their feet in the midst of the battle. The hidden defense systems of Earth, activated by the ancients, human signal, came alive. These were no ordinary defenses. They were relics of the golden age of humanity, weapons designed to protect their greatest creation. The Earth itself had become a weapon. Underground bunkers filled with dormant soldiers from a bygone era powered up, old war machines reactivated, and secret bases hidden deep within the planet's crust began to churn back to life as the invaders fired upon the surface, expecting to destroy what was left of Earth's cities. They found themselves fighting a force they hadn't anticipated. Earth itself fought back. Massive cannons rose from the surface, launching powerful blasts into the invading fleet, catching them off guard. The ground trembled as entire cities activated secret weapon systems, their skyscrapers rising into war machines of unimaginable power. The invaders quickly realized that Earth was no longer the barren, weak planet they had assumed. It was a living entity, fighting for its people, its legacy. The invaders, though mighty in their own right, had underestimated the will of a planet that had long been thought defeated. On the ground, the resistance fighters, humans who had never given up hope, began to rally. They gathered in secret underground cities, hidden from the invaders' watchful eyes. Equipped with weapons scavenged from the ruins, they emerged from the darkness, fighting alongside the awakened Earth forces. They had been waiting for this moment, training for a battle they had known was coming. Humanity's forces, both in the sky and on the ground, began to push back. The invaders, initially confident in their superiority, now found themselves stretched thin. They fought not only against human warriors, but against the very land itself. The planet, though scarred, fought with a vengeance that shook the invaders. To their core, in space, the battle raged on. The invaders' flagship, a massive vessel designed to carry an entire fleet, moved to the front lines, ready to decimate the remaining human forces. But the humans had a secret weapon of their own. The final relic of the ancient human fleet, the HFY, a ship so old that only whispers of its existence remained. It was humanity's last hope. The Aetherus emerged from the depths of the human fleet, its hull glowing with the light of ancient technology. It was a ship like no other capable of shifting the tide of the war. The invaders watched in disbelief as the ship powered up, its weapon systems glowing with a destructive force that could obliterate entire fleets. As the Aetherus unleashed its first strike, a wave of energy pulsed through the sky, decimating the invader fleet's defenses. For the first time since the war began, the invaders began to falter. Their once invincible ships cracked under the weight of the human assault. The invaders were not only fighting against humanity's fleet, they were fighting against the ghosts of Earth's past, and they were losing. On the ground, the resistance fighters pressed forward, pushing the invaders back from their strongholds. The invaders, now realizing that Earth was not just a planet they had woken something far more dangerous, began to retreat. But it was too late. The battle for Earth had begun in earnest, and humanity was ready to reclaim their home. The invaders were no longer the hunters, they had become the hunted. As the first rays of sunlight broke through the clouds, The humans looked to the sky. The battle was far from over, but it was clear humanity had returned, and Earth, the planet they had once called home, had risen to fight alongside them. The war was just beginning. Asterisk as the dust of battle settled. The horizon above Earth was marked by the remnants of both human and invader fleets. The Earth's surface, though scarred, stood resilient, its spirit, much like its people, never broken. Yet, even as humanity began to claim their world back, something deeper was stirring beneath. The chaos, the truth of Earth's long-forgotten past, the reason behind humanity's exile, was slowly beginning to surface in the heart of the war-torn cities. Scattered remnants of humanity's old government, those who had survived in secret for centuries, gathered in the shadow of a fallen invader fortress. Hidden deep within the bowels of the planet, they had long studied the ancient records, hoping for a sign that their time of exile would end. What they uncovered was more than just the history of a lost civilization. It was the key to everything, and what they learned would shake the foundation of the war. The invaders were not just conquerors, they were usurpers. Thousands of years ago, humanity had not been defeated in a war of survival, as history had long taught. Instead, the story was far more complex. The invaders had come not as invaders at all, but as refugees fleeing from a catastrophe so horrific that it could have wiped out all life in the galaxy. Earth, in its early days, had been a beacon of knowledge, a flourishing hub of peace and innovation. But a catastrophic event, beyond the understanding of even the greatest minds of the time, had thrown the galaxy into chaos. The invaders, a race of intellectuals and scientists, had discovered Earth during their time of flight. But instead of seeking peaceful alliance, they had plotted to take the planet for themselves. They manipulated humanity into a war that pushed Earth to the brink of collapse. Then, as humanity was broken, they seized the planet, claiming that their superior race would bring order to the chaos. The truth was far more sinister. Earth had not been lost through weakness, but through betrayal. For centuries, Earth's own people had been kept in the dark. The survivors, hidden away in deep underground cities, were forced to believe their exile was self-imposed, that they were a defeated race. But the war they had fought, the destruction they had endured, was not the consequence of failure, was the result of deception. The survivors of the ancient resistance, now united with the returning human fleet, began to rally around the truth. The invaders, those who had once claimed superiority over humanity, were not the true victors of the war. They were the deceivers, the ones who had rewritten history to cover their own crimes. The truth was out, and it burned like a fire within the hearts of humanity. But the most shocking revelation came from an ancient archive hidden beneath. The Earth's crust buried deep within a forgotten city, long believed to be the epicenter of humanity's downfall. The records held within told of a forbidden technology, one that had been buried to prevent its misuse. This technology, capable of altering the very fabric of space and time, had been humanity's greatest achievement, but it had been sealed away for a reason. In the wrong hands, it could destroy entire galaxies. The invaders, with their lust for control, had seized the power of this technology and used it to ensure their rule over Earth. As the humans pieced together the fragments of their past, they realized that the war was not just about reclaiming Earth, it was about reclaiming their legacy. The true enemy was not only the invaders, but the power that they had stolen from humanity's past. The time had come for the humans to not only fight for their planet, but for their place in the galaxy. In the heart of the battlefield, As the human forces prepared for the final push, a secret weapon was uncovered, deep beneath Earth's surface. Hidden in the forgotten depths was the key to restoring the balance of power. Humanity's lost technology, once thought to be only a myth, was now within their grasp. With it, they could defeat the invaders once and for all, but it came at a price. Using this power meant risking everything, the delicate balance of life itself. The technology was unstable, and its use would leave the planet forever changed. It was a decision that no one could make lightly, as the human forces gathered to launch their final assault. The fate of Earth rested not only on the strength of their armies, but on the decision to wield the power of their past. Would they use it to defeat the invaders and reclaim their planet? Or would they let the truth remain buried, knowing the cost of unleashing the full force of humanity's forgotten legacy? In the war-torn silence of Earth's surface, as the skies filled with fire and steel, humanity faced its greatest challenge, not just to reclaim their home, but to decide what kind of future they wanted to build. The truth had come, and with it, the power to reshape the galaxy. The question remained, would they control it or would it control them? The final battle was not just for Earth. It was for everything humanity had ever been, everything they had lost, and everything they had yet to become. The choice, in the end, would change everything. Asterisk, the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a blood-red glow over the war-ravaged surface of Earth. The battle had raged for days, leaving cities in ruins and the sky filled with the aftermath of countless explosions. Humanity's forces, though outnumbered and outgunned, had refused to relent. They had not returned just to fight. They had returned to reclaim their birthright. But as the last remnants of the invader fleet clashed with the humans' ancient ships, the true scope of what lay ahead began to crystallize. This was not merely a fight for survival. This was a fight for existence itself. In the distance, the invaders' flagship loomed ominously, a massive fortress in space, its dark hull scarred from the battle, yet still brimming with lethal potential. It was the heart of their empire, the symbol of their arrogance. But the humans had one final card to play, a weapon so powerful it could turn the tide of the war in an instant. The Aetheris, the ancient ship, humanity's last and greatest hope, had emerged from the deep void of space, its sleek form gliding silently toward the heart of the invaders' fleet. Its weapons, pulsing with the raw energy of forgotten technology, had the potential to obliterate entire fleets. But it wasn't just the power of the Aetheris that made it humanity's final hope. It was the secret buried deep within its core, piece of the lost technology that could reshape the very fabric of reality itself. The Aetheris was humanity's final weapon, and with it came the knowledge that their existence might not only end the war, but change the very nature of the galaxy. This was a decision that would determine whether humanity would be an enduring force in the universe or a fleeting memory lost to the stars. The invaders, desperate to maintain their dominance, began to launch their final assault. Their fleet, once proud and imposing, now teetered on the edge of collapse. The humans had broken through their defenses, and Earth's ancient systems, now fully activated, had begun to turn the tide. The planet itself, once a silent witness to the destruction, now fought with the fury of its people. But as the final battle began to reach its apex, an unexpected twist occurred. The Aetheris, while brimming with the power to defeat the invaders, was unstable. Its core, powered by the forbidden technology humanity had uncovered, was slowly beginning to destabilize. The energy that had once been a tool for creation was now threatening to tear apart the fabric of space-time itself. The humans faced an impossible choice: Use the weapon to finish the invaders and risk tearing the galaxy apart, or let the invaders win and live to fight another day on Earth's surface. The final resistance forces clashed with the invaders. Ground forces. The humans, emboldened by the knowledge that victory was within their grasp, fought with an intensity that only a species desperate to survive could muster. The tide of the battle was shifting, but time was running out. As the Aetherus powered up for one final strike, the people of Earth held their breath, knowing that the fate of their world and the galaxy rested on a knife's edge in the control room of the Aetherus. The decision was made. The fleet commander, a seasoned veteran of the human resistance, stood before the ship's control panel, his hands trembling. He had seen too much death, too much destruction, but he knew what had to be done. With one final push of a button, the Aetherus unleashed its full power. A brilliant flash of light erupted from the core of the ship, sending shockwaves across the battlefield. The invaders' fleet faltered, and for a moment everything seemed to freeze in place. Time itself appeared to slow as the energy surged outward, washing over the entire battlefield, cleansing it of its corruption. The Aetherus had unleashed a burst of energy so powerful that it tore through the invaders' shields and crippled their ships, reducing them to molten fragments in the blink of an eye. But as the light of the burst faded, it became clear that the power of the Aetherus had come at a cost. The very fabric of space began to ripple, the universe itself trembling as the forbidden technology pushed the limits of reality. The stars above Earth began to flicker, as if the galaxy itself was reeling from the force unleashed. The energy released by the Aetherus had not only defeated the invaders, it had begun to tear apart the very structure of time and space. The humans on Earth watched in awe and terror as the sky above them shifted, the stars bending and warping. The Aetherus had done its job, had eradicated the invaders, but at what cost? In the final moments, as the invaders' fleet was utterly destroyed, the human fleet began to retreat. Earth's surface shook, and the ground cracked as the unstable energy from the Aetherus continued to ripple outward, threatening to tear apart everything. The survivors, those left standing after the battle, watched helplessly as the universe around them began to collapse into chaos in those final moments. The humans realized that their victory had come at the price of something far greater than they had anticipated. Earth had been saved, but the cost of their survival might be the very fabric of reality itself. As the last of the invader ships burned up in the atmosphere, the humans made one final decision. They would rebuild not just their world, but the future of the galaxy. They had fought, they had won, and now they had to survive in a universe forever changed by the actions of their past. The battle was over, but the true test of humanity's strength had only just begun, and in the aftermath of victory they would face a new, even greater challenge: to restore balance to a universe on the brink of collapse, and ensure that humanity's legacy would endure no matter the cost.